everybody!
Hello.
All right, we are doing our first podcast. Welcome! Nothing is planned, and we're going to totally wing this, so here we go. Yeah, sorry, Erica, I'm just kind of taking the show, I guess, right now.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so we have had a lot of questions and things that people were wanting to know, and we decided to kind of use this use this podcast, this first one, as our introductory
Introduction.
there we go. Yeah. As our introduction. So we're just going to kind of talk about ourselves and kind of go along the lines with that. So, Erica, if you want to kind of start us off, the first thing that we're going to kind of talk about is our childhood, to see if we, how our childhood was, and if we knew that we had gifts back then, and yeah, something like that.
Okay. So I guess that when I was a little kid, I always believed in magic, but I didn't really know that. Like, I guess, like, I know that you, and you'll probably talk about it, like, you had, like, a lot of clairvoyant experiences when you were a little kid. My experiences were more dream-oriented. I had a lot of, like, recurring dreams that would tell me different things, and I had a lot of, like, intuitive type stuff where I could almost like tell what a person was going to do before they did it, or I could tell if they were like a good person or a bad person before I really got to know them. So I guess that's kind of like an empathic ability. I don't really remember much of like talking to ghosts per se, but I do think that they came to me a lot in my sleep. I know that I went through a time when I was probably like 8 or 9 years old where I was actually put in therapy for a while because I was having these reoccurring dreams every single night and I just wouldn't sleep. I would get like maybe 2-3 hours of sleep every night, which means that the people taking care of me also only got 2-3 hours of sleep at night. So they decided to put me into counseling over that. And I do remember they even like hypnotized me in counseling to try to figure out like what was like subconsciously going on in my head and stuff. And I don't know. I think I was like traveling to other places. So that's more like, I guess if you want to talk in like a psychic type of sense, that's kind of what I was doing when I was a little kid.
Do you remember like any of your dreams that you used to have when you were a kid?
Yeah. So the main one where I ended up in counseling was we lived in this big house in Omaha, and there was this little like walk cellar thing in the basement that like we never knew how far it went. I never went to the end of it, so it was like this big mystery to me. So I mean, maybe this is kind of like a ghost talking to me, because I had the dream was that there was this skeleton lady in a coffin and she was down in that cellar thing, and every night she would wake up and bust out of the coffin and she would go around Omaha killing people. And
Oh,
I would be
God.
like following her wherever she was going, and I was like trying to figure out like when this was going to stop, and it would just like every night it would pick back up where it left off at. So so I just saw this
Wow.
lady coming around and killing people. Yeah,
Huh.
she looked like the crypt keeper.
Like, so legit skeleton. Ew.
Yeah, yeah.
Ew. I definitely had dreams when I was in my childhood. Like, I don't know if I say this on my website or anything. I feel like I say the same stories all the time, and I'm constantly rehashing like my life because I get interviewed a lot, I guess. But I in my childhood, the one that I remember a lot was when I was going into my senior year. So that's childhood to me because I'm 35 this month. I'm an old fart. So 17-ish or whatever, and going into my senior year, I had a dream that summer that my step grandpa died. And it was like I could see his whole, like where he was at. He had a hospital bed. He was on hospice. He was like 93, I think, when he died. He was ridiculously old. And when he passed away, Jesus was there, his glowy Jesus-y self. And then his name is Smitty. My step grandpa, we called him Smitty. And he, because of course his last name is Smith and it's lazy. But anyways, his glowy self like raised out of his body and like took Jesus's hand and walked into my grandma's bedroom, and he kissed my grandma on the forehead and said, "I'm going home, Dolores. I'll see you when you get there." Then I woke up in real life, called my grandma, and she's sobbing, and she's like, he just died, and I was like, what the frick just happened? Like, I was so confused. So anytime somebody close to me died, I had those dreams, but that was the first time that ever happened. But as far as childhood stuff for me, like, when I was young, I used to live in Fremont. I was on Nye Street. And there was a little girl that lived in this house with me, ghost-wise. Her name was Chloe. She was, like, my best friend. And she used to live in the laundry chute. Come to find out, I did some research later, she ended up passing away. She got killed in a car accident or something on the road that was right next to, in between the house and the dentist office that I lived in. She was there. I used to have a Santa looking guy, like Billy Bob Thornton, Bad Santa. He would stand in my doorway all the time. I was so scared of him as a little kid. I was like 5 to 10 years old is when all this would happen. And then I had lots of other spirits, but those were the two ones that like were always there and constantly bothering me. And so yeah, that honestly, like, someone asked me just recently, they're like, oh, what other stuff like in your teenage life and stuff like that? Cause I got, in contact with a person that was more of my teenage life just recently. And she was asking, what is, did you have any gifts or anything that went on with that? And I was like, no, I completely repressed everything. My whole, like, teenage, college, nothing like that went on.
Yeah, and I can relate to that because I did. I think that a lot of the people that tell the same story as us will say the same type of thing. Like, you know, we all went through this phase where we were just like completely lost and out of touch with ourselves. And same here. My teenage years were filled with lots of, you know, drugs and, you know, going another direction.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I wasn't filled with drugs. I was filled with Jesus. And, my teenage years were like me being obsessed with NSYNC and Jesus. That's basically it.
Yeah, you went through your phase later on in like your 20s, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The drug phase, that is.
I just tried to pack my whole life into the first 20 years. I was like, I'm just gonna get it all out of the way now.
Yeah. So anything else to talk about, I guess, childhood wise? I mean, we both have trauma. So I guess trauma is kind of what makes us have a little bit of a spice.
Why don't you kind of like give like, I mean, obviously there's never enough time to like tell your whole life story, but what if you just give kind of like a synopsis of like you know, like key points, I guess, growing up that kind of led to your adult life maybe.
Okay. So even like the jobs and stuff?
Well, maybe before, since we're still on the subject of childhood, maybe just go through childhood.
Okay.
You know.
So okay, this is a good one. I don't remember before 3, really. I mean, granted, yes, I was a twinless twin. I had a twin that was pronounced dead 5 hours after we were born. And so my whole life I knew about her starting at 4 years old. And the reason why I knew that, we were living in Kansas, Gaylord, Kansas, and my neighbors were twins, and I remember my mom, they were like my same age, and my mom was like, go out and play with them, why don't you go have fun, go play? And I was like, Mom, there's just something about them that I just don't like I don't want to be around them, I can't be around them. And then that's when Mom sat me down at 4 years old and was like, we got to tell you something. So told me about the twinless twin. So my whole life I knew about this. So I've always, I mean, granted, yes, I'm an Aquarius. I always feel like I'm on the outside. I always feel like I'm a weirdo and whatever. But that was super extra to kind of feel like a piece of me was missing. So I do feel like a lot of my teenage years, I remember searching when the internet came out. Yeah, because I'm that old. I remember like looking for information about twinless twins. Fun fact, Elvis was one. And like just kind of trying to understand myself. I don't have a lot of key points. We moved from Fremont when I was in 6th grade to Meade, Nebraska, butthole town, 20 kids in my graduating class. You were either Jesus or sports. There was like no in between with this. And I was the gothic weirdo that dressed all in black and crazy punk stuff. I did not fit in, and I loved it. I loved that I was the weirdo in the town. It was so much fun to just express myself crazily and have a safe like community to do that, I guess. So then moving into college for me, going to Grace University with hundreds of people, not thousands, hundreds, I got called the devil because I was so confident in myself and who I was, and I got pretty ridiculed at Grace University. I did not have a good time. I made a lot of good friends, and people that were my friends all ended up along the same path as me, but that's pretty much it. I don't really have, I mean, granted, yeah, when I was 16 years old, I decided to get drunk for the first time ever, and my birthday's in January, so in March is when I got caught getting drunk often, and that was the end of that. Like, I didn't have a lot of, like, crazy stuff go on, so my childhood was not, like, extremely crazy or whatever, but when I was in Fremont, I guess I should talk about this, when I was, like, 7 or 8 years old, I have a trauma, I guess, I don't even know this is a weird thing to talk about, but whatever.
Well, that's what we're doing, right?
I know. So, 7 or 8 years old, I had a really good friend, best friend at the time, and I was at her dad's birthday party, and long story short, I was molested, and it sucked. I repressed that till I was like 27, I think. So, it was nothing like horrific, or whatever, and I was not raped. I was molested. It was just super awkward and weird. But it's all something that I had to work through, and that's it. Yeah, I don't have a lot of stuff to talk about with my childhood. So everything crazy has happened.
What about maybe like some key elements of your parents, like the way that they raised you, that might have kind of like formed and shaped your perception as an adult?
Okay. So my mom is a Gemini, Aries moon, Leo rising. My dad is a Pisces, Scorpio, everything else. My parents were very, very, very strict. We were on a very tight leash the whole time. I used to get grounded if I like glared at them or looked at them wrong, and I would get grounded not for just like a night. I would get grounded for like 2 weeks. When I got caught in March, that March on my 16th birthday or whatever, after my birthday, I was grounded for a whole year. And it wasn't just like grounded, you can't go anywhere. I got everything taken away. No internet, no TV, nothing. So here comes my brain to like take over. I started making clothes. I started doing some weird stuff, like listening to weird music, whatever. So that's when I ended up finding the church for me, because they were like, oh, she can't get in trouble there. And that's why I went through my Jesus phase, is because I was grounded all the time and I couldn't do anything else. So yeah, and during that time when I was grounded for a year, my dad started working at the school as the maintenance guy, and was able to watch over my every move. I was not able to hang out with the people that I wanted to hang out with. I was completely sheltered, like, you know. And that party that I did go to in that March time, he called every single parent and told on all of the kids that were there, and I was bullied the whole rest of my high school life for that. I used to work at Runza. Those of you that are not from Nebraska, it's a fast food restaurant. And they used to come through the drive-thru and like scream, "Free Willy!" It was so mean. Kids were so mean. Yeah, but yeah. So a lot of my problem of my whole entire life, childhood wise, was my parents. Hi,
Yeah.
Mom.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so this is kind of a crazy deal for both of us, because obviously when you go into a setting like this, you have to kind of put your life out on the open. So yeah, this could, obviously there's going to be things that come with that, but I think that ultimately it's best for everybody watching to, know who we really are and what we came from. And so would you say that, like, how would you say, like, your mom's parenting style, like both of your parents' parenting style, and how that, like, maybe gave you some I don't want to say trauma, but maybe like subconscious programming that you've had to work through as an adult?
Yikes. Okay. Remind me to text my mom and tell her to not watch this.
Yeah, same here. Nobody in my family better watch this either. So.
So shit. So, okay, first of all, I realized that I had a lot of codependent issues. That's one of the main things, because they had such a tight grip on me my whole life. I've always, like, had a problem with authority. I mean, granted, that is an Aquarius thing, but, like, as soon as someone tries to, like, micromanage me is when I'm like, fuck you, get out of here. Like, I freak the hell out because
It triggers you.
I go back into that, yes. And then there was numerous things that happened in my life that caused abandonment issues. But I think that me kind of getting kicked out around my senior year caused a lot of abandonment issues. I remember there was one memory that I have of my whole family, like, went to Colorado, my sister, my mom, and my dad, and I was supposed to be working. This was, like, me going into college soon or something. And they disconnected something in my car, so I ended up getting, like, fired from my job because I couldn't go to my job because they didn't want me to do anything and just to stay at home. Like, weird shit like that. And they left. Like, they didn't even tell me that they were leaving to go to Colorado, but they, like, went and did their own thing and just, like, fuck you, Claire, So I have a lot of abandonment issues, and I think that for me it started with my twin, and then there's just been tons of other random stuff that has happened. But hands down, abandonment has been the main thing in my adult life that I have been fully hard putting work into, because that's the thing that affects so much. I mean, I had a meltdown this week about it still. Like, I'm still constantly doing it. So, yeah. Yep, my parents fucked me up.
So what about, like, your dad? Like, I know that obviously, I guess I know a lot about you, so it's kind of easier for me to probe you on things. But,
Yeah.
like, what about, I know you've talked about your dad being a Pisces and how he kind of, like, escaped a lot from the reality of what was going on. And your mom kind of just went along with that, right? Like, and didn't really ever stand up for, like, you. And I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that.
I guess the main thing that comes to my head is that my parents gaslighted me a lot, and they used to say that I was making up stuff, and that if I would call them out on something that they did, they never would say sorry. They would say I would make it up, and it really it really messed me up in a way that, like, to understand, like, is this real life? Is this something that's really happening? Like, the Pisces mentality has a way of manipulating people into, like, what the hell is reality anymore? Like, it really messed me up. Like, me having Venus and Mars and Pisces, like, I know that I can get slipped into that pretty easy. But my God, it was very hard. And it was, like, there's lots of things that my dad, like, schemey wise, he's always wheeling and dealing. Like, he will buy one, like, thing, like, he'll buy, like, a truck or something, and then he'll go and sell it for, like, double, and he didn't do anything to it. That's stuff my dad would always do. Like, and, like, this is good, this is fine, this is normal, this is right, if it's in good juju. No, it's not. Like, we would have to do, there was a lot of like mental prepping to be like, okay, that is wrong. This is okay. That is wrong. Like, it was hard. It was a hard mentality to. I don't even know if I answered your question.
No, I think you did. I
Okay.
think you did because I think that, like, basically that's what left you with the baggage to sort through once you went through your awakening, which obviously we'll get to soon. But it's a good way to kind of preface all of that, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Preface, whatever. Um, so I don't know where to really start with me. I was born in North Platte, Nebraska, which is 4 hours even more into the middle of nowhere than I currently am in Fremont, Nebraska. I was born to teenage parents. So my mom was only 17 when she had me, and my dad was 19. And my grandma forced them to get married when they found out that they were pregnant with me. So that kind of gives you a little idea of what they were raised like. You know, my grandma was the strict parent she was very religious. And so, of course, it wasn't looked kindly upon to have a baby when you weren't married. So she forced them to marry each other. And my mom was already an alcoholic at that point. She started drinking pretty heavily when she was like 13 years old, going to parties and stuff. So, and that's actually how they met each other. So I guess, so that's kind of what I was born into. And of course, my parents didn't last long. I think they got divorced like 6 months after I was born. So then my mom was a single mom. And I have one brother, and he's 3 years younger than me. So I guess just to kind of like fast forward through that. So I was taken care of like by a lot of different people. So I was adopted 2 times. I was taken care of by my grandma a lot and by my aunts a lot. Babysat a lot, I guess, by like my mom's friends and my mom's friends' parents. So there was like a lot of different styles, I guess, that I was raised in. So I think that kind of shaped me in a good way, giving me a lot of different perspectives on like how different people live and how different people, like what their different beliefs are and different outlooks in life. And so that really helped me out. But it also gave me also a lot of abandonment issues because I never was really sure. I guess the whole time growing up, I was never really sure where I was going to live. I was never really sure, who was going to be taking care of me or if everything was going to be okay. Like I lived a very turbulent childhood, I guess you could put it that way.
Survivor.
Huh?
It was like a survivor mentality.
Yeah. So yeah, that's, and that's another point to it is that I grew up poor. Everybody that raised me didn't have money. So kind of like the same kind of scheming thing. I learned very young how to like scheme your way through life to like keep a roof over your head. And I remember like watching my mom be a pro at it. Like she would come home after a night at the bar and like spent $600-$700 in one night, and then all of a sudden we don't have rent money and we're gonna get evicted. So it was like crazy, like watching her. She would just figure out weird ways and schemy ways to like end up making it okay, like, oh, okay, we're good for another month. Or if like we weren't and we were evicted, she would just all of a sudden pull out another rental out of her butt, like, oh, okay, we're moving into this place now. So yeah, so I had to learn a lot about like, survival stuff when I was a kid. So there was maybe that's why I didn't really go through a lot of this spiritual stuff as a kid, because I just never really had the time to like think about it or think about who I was as a person, which is where this all has come into as an adult. I don't know.
So how was it? Because okay, so with that kind of lifestyle, you basically had to learn to raise yourself a lot of the time.
Yeah, and I did a lot of raising of my brother too.
That's what I was going to ask you about. Yeah. So how was that? How was raising that your brother?
Well, okay, so I guess that kind of gets into my teenage years. So yeah, I spent a lot of my life taking care of my brother, and I don't know, I guess just I kind of wanted to just be like a role model to him. So it wasn't so much like I never really felt like I was his parent, but I felt like I was his leader, I guess, if that makes sense. So spending a lot of my life doing that, and then I get to my teenage years. So when I was 16 years old, I lived with my aunt. She was taking care of me at that time, and she kicked me out on my own. and I had a boyfriend at the time who was much older than me, and I moved in with him, and I ended up getting busted living with him, and the cops were basically like, you are too young to be living on your own, so you need to like find a guardian basically, or you're going to go to a group home. And so I remember going to my mom and asking her if I could live with her. And she was like, no, now's not a good time. I'm going to get married. And I have these two other little kids that I'm taking care of. So how about you get married? Like that would solve it all. You'll get emancipated if you get married. So that's what I ended up doing. And I remember from that point on, just kind of like feeling like I'm ready to be an adult now. Like I'm ready to have kids and I'm ready to have a family. And I'm going to show like how I can do this all differently than everybody else in my life. And so yeah, so that's one thing that has been crazy for me is that I started my own family at 18 years old, just out of the pure angst, I guess, to be different. And that's left me with like a lot of obstacles in my adult life to get through. Because obviously, at 17 years old, wanting to have a baby, you don't know what the hell you're getting into. Even though you think you do, you really don't, you know?
Yeah.
So I guess that's kind of what you could say about me raising my brother. It always kind of gave me that maternal, like, I could take care of things better than what I was shown.
Hmm. Which is crazy to kind of think of like how opposite we are with that. Like I was forced to be completely alone a lot of my teenage years, like shoved in my room, like completely by myself in my own head, and you were forced to be.
Yeah, and so that's another thing too, is that since my family was poor and they were super codependent on each other, there was a lot of times in my life where we all lived together, like, 7, 8, 10 of us all together. And like I remember one time we were all living together. I think there was like 12 of us total in a 2-bedroom apartment.
Oh my god.
So yeah, opposite. I never got like any privacy
Huh.
growing up. Like I was always surrounded by people. And even when I lived with, so maybe that was kind of the point when I lived with my aunt in my teenage years. She was going through a time in her life where she was getting migraine headaches all the time. So she started taking a lot of medication. And so she started sleeping a lot. And when she was sleeping, I could just do whatever the hell I wanted to do and she wouldn't know about it. So that was dangerous. That's why I went through that as a teenager of like, the drug phase and the alcohol and the partying and all of that, because it was like I finally had some freedom to go figure out who the hell I was. And I just like went, like, took complete advantage of that and really did do whatever I wanted to do. So yeah,
Yeah.
opposite there too. Like you were raised by strict parents and I was like just left
Not
to,
strict at all.
yep.
Yeah. Um. So yeah. Is that kind of it for your childhood? Let me think. Is there any? Oh, I guess we could talk about like for you trauma, like how any other triggers that you have.
Well, okay, so I was raised by addicts. Everybody in my life was an addict, so that gave me a lot of abandonment issues for sure for me. And isn't that crazy? You can get abandonment issues and having a
Anyone.
completely different life, But
Mm.
so that's a huge one for me. Also like kind of the same as you too, just kind of like wondering what's real and what's not. I had like a lot of hypochondria. Like a lot of my family members like always thought that they were sick with something, and that would give them an excuse to get like attention or take a medication or basically escape reality. So I remember like as an adult, if I was ever going through something medically, I would always question myself, like, am I really feeling this pain or is this just my brain making it up, kind of stuff like that.
Yeah.
um I was also molested as a young little kid by yeah, it's weird to talk about, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I was molested as well as a kid by my uncle. And that was kind of a weird dynamic to watch, like how my family likes to cover things up, and not talk about it, which is probably why it's such a big deal for us to talk about this, because we know very well that when our family sees this, they're going to be upset that we're talking about it, because that's something that I grew up in. We don't talk about that,
Yep.
So
Sweep it under the rug. Don't talk about it.
yeah, so me as an adult, being an open book has been really hard for me. It's been really hard for me to let go of other people's judgments, because I was raised that we should care what other people think about us, that if you're going to scheme your way through life and you're going to go through that survival mentality, people have to like you. You know, you're not going to get what you want if people don't like you. And the only way that people are going to like you is if you fit their role. So even if you don't, pretend that you do. You know, even if you're poor, pretend that you have money. So so that's a big one.
Yeah. Oh, dang it. Something just came to my brain about this. Fart. I lost it. Fucking Aquariusness. Dang it. It was something about the, like, with the molesting, I think. Oh, I was going to talk about that. Like, we did separate things for that, too. So when this whole thing happened to me, I completely hid it. And, like, I remember even after it happened, I crawled under this girl's bed and, like, hid the whole rest of the night until the sun came up. And then I ran home as soon as I could because I was like, nobody is going to know this. Like, I knew as a 7 or 8 year old that my parents were not going to believe me, that they were not going to listen to me, and that they were going to think I was lying. So I had to hide it and go through that trauma, you know, like covers over your head, like, no, this is not happening, this is not happening. And then as soon as the light came up, I took off, and like I never went over to that girl's house again. Or maybe I did. I don't know. I repressed that memory so hard that I have no idea. And the weirdest thing is when that memory came back, that same year, I remember going to like Blue Sushi here, and the girl was my waitress. I like walked in and she walked up to the table, and I just got up and left. And I was on a date, and they were like, what the fuck? Why did you? And I'm like, I'm sorry, I have problems. Like, but yeah, I guess you could, kind of talk about like how, like with me, I completely repressed mine, and you did the complete opposite for that too.
Yeah. So my family, I guess so my mom kind of caught it in the middle because I like knew something was weird, and so my whole family was in the same apartment. Like it happened in my bedroom while I was just up there laying up there watching like Beauty and the Beast or something when it happened, and I knew something was weird about it. And so I went down to my mom and I was like, hey, there's my under I think I just said like, hey, my underwear is wet. And she's like, what? Like, you know, because I was like probably kindergarten age at that point, so obviously I'm potty trained. So she looked into it and figured out what the hell happened and like freaked the fuck out. And it became this like huge thing in my family. Like, he ended up getting in trouble for it. And then, it ended up causing like a lot of like hostility between family members over it because he was family, you know? So that was a big deal. And then it kind of caused like a lot of awkwardness going forward. And, that's actually what caused me to be adopted the first time. That's what led up to that. And then also what led up to me not sleeping at night and having those crazy dreams and being in therapy. And they were just constantly like wanting me to like talk about it and like put me in counseling over it and like just pound it into my head that this happened to me. So I was not able to suppress it. It was like a constant reminder every day.
So it's not a bad thing though. Like I'm glad that you were forced to like process through that. Like, I mean, imagine 8 years old and then 27 years old, bam, like my whole world blew up then.
Yeah. For me, I guess like it is good in that sense, but the bad part about it was that I felt like a lot of the things going on were my fault, you know, like, oh, everybody's fighting and it's my fault, or oh, I'm getting adopted now and it's my fault, and like so that's kind of like how that that turned out.
Poop. Well, I guess we can move forward on the next one. You think?
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to go forward into adult life now?
Yeah, like kind of we can talk about like what our jobs have been, what were our main things. Like, how old are you again?
I am going to be 28.
Okay, so we're a little bit ages apart, so I'll go first and kind of talk about, like, I've had a ridiculous amount of jobs. So I've been working my whole life, except for the 3.5 years I was on bed rest. We'll get to that. And, but like my whole life since I was 12 years old. So I had to get a job, and I remember my parents even saying like, if you want to have nice things, like Pantene Pro V conditioner. You got to go get a job. So I cleaned my dad's, he used to work at a welding company, all males, the bathroom. Oh, it was so gross. But that was my first job. And then I detasseled. I worked at Todd Valley Farms planting buffalo grass. Then worked at Runza for like 4 years. Then random other jobs. But then when I moved to Beatrice after Grace University, I moved to Beatrice. I started the job at Mosaic, which is mentally handicapped people. Worked 3 days and was attacked on the third day by a mentally handicapped person and slipped 2 discs in my back, had to be on bed rest for 3.5 years. That is when I got addicted to pain pills. I was taking 36 oxys a day, and that was probably about 5 years of my life. Because after I was released from work comp, I took off to Chicago because my boyfriend broke up with me at that time. And I just didn't want to be around anyone that, whatever. So, took off to Chicago and the addiction continued. Then coming back to after the whole Chicago, I was there for about 10 months, 9 months, something like that. Came back, admitted myself to my parents' basement at the time. So I was like 23, 4, or something like that, maybe 6. I don't know. I'm terrible with ages. I don't remember. Because that 5 years of my life, it's like it didn't even happen. Like, I did not progress. Yeah, I did not progress. I did not do anything. It was like I got paused, you know? All I did was sleep and watch Netflix movies when they used to send them in the mail. Like, that was my thing.
Yep.
But anyway, so yeah, I admitted myself to my parents' basement, and it took me 3 months, but I got completely clean, and I didn't tell anybody what I was doing. I didn't tell anybody that I had an addiction problem. I never talked about anything like that. And then from there, I got into photography. I became the lead manager at Picture People in the Oakview Mall, and then I went on to do photography for Thomas the Train, and then I did school photography, and I did all this, and then I worked at the Humane Society. I worked in a call center. I worked in the drug and alcohol rehab facility. And then the last job that I had was CNA work, hospice work, doing Reiki for hospice. So, yeah, that's my rap sheet of a resume. Yeah.
Okay, so let's see here. So I didn't graduate from high school with a diploma, but I did go and get my GED, and I scored high enough on my GED test to get my actual diploma, which I thought was just so funny because I'm like, you know, all that shit I went through in high school, and I literally didn't have to do any of it. I could go take some freaking tests and get the same damn thing. Like, you know, so it kind of like put a weird perspective on how pointless it all was. Then what was my first job? I worked at a call center in North Platte. I worked at McDonald's in North Platte, and I worked at Jimmy John's. And then I got pregnant with my first daughter and moved here to Fremont. And from there, I did, I don't even know. That's kind of a blur, too. I know that I stayed home. I was an at-home mom with her for a little while. And then I would say, like, my first big girl job out of that, I started at a daycare with her because it was easier to, like, you know, take her to daycare and then work at the daycare. So I did that for a while, which gave me enough experience to get a job as a preschool teacher's aide, I guess, at a school here in Fremont. And it was a preschool for kids with disabilities. So I took care of like 3, 4, and 5-year-olds that had autism and Down syndrome, and also kiddos. Yeah, and also kiddos that in Fremont, we have a lot of people that have like are freshly here from Mexico or Guatemala or whatever that couldn't speak any English. So they would also put those kinds of kids in there because we needed to get them up to speed before they started kindergarten. And then after that, I worked for Health and Human Services, and I was a social worker, and I took care of stuff like food stamps and energy assistance, childcare, all of that stuff. Did that for like 2.5, 3 years, something around that. And then I also worked in a probation office for a while. And then I did social work in a sense where I would go do visits with kids in their houses, to their parents, like kids that were separated from their parents. I would take them back to their parents for visits and stuff like that. That didn't last long. I freaking hated that. And then after that, I went, so a lot of like human services type stuff. And then after that, I started doing, I worked for the radio station here in town. And that's what kind of got me into more of like a sales role. And so for the radio station, which is also weird because when I was in high school, that's what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wanted to be a radio DJ. And I did a lot of internships with the radio station, and then I switched and I also wanted to be a tattoo artist, so I did a lot of internships for that too when I was a teenager. And I also went to college for a while for the arts and took like drawing classes and stuff like that. And then radio station, which was funny because I always wanted to work in a radio station, but never did I think I would be doing sales for a radio station, but that's what I was doing. So I was going around and like hobnobbing with like fancy people to try to get them to purchase radio ads. And that's actually when I met Claire, and it was kind of funny. Like I could go and see Claire because I had this like freedom at that job where I could like kind of work my own schedule and stuff. And so that allowed me to be able to come up and do sessions with her. And then I ended up leaving the radio station because they were going to cut off of my commission. And then I decided, okay, I'm just going to go take these tests and become an insurance agent. So that's kind of what I'm doing, like several different things right now. I'm working at an insurance agency selling insurance. I have like all of my licenses with that. And then I also do, my astrology and Reiki and stuff. And then I also bartend sometimes. So I'm kind of also like a jack of all trades. I've done like a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm. Which I think that it probably is a bit of a normal thing for Aquariuses or any air sign to get bored with things and keep moving, kind of a feel.
We just we want to learn more. So if we're in the type of position where we learn everything we know we need to learn, and then there's not really much else to learn, we're just bored. Done with it then. Yeah.
I guess college-wise, I didn't talk about that for me. Right out of high school, I went to Grace University to become a youth pastor. And then I switched my major to be a radio DJ. Right when I switched my major, they dropped the program at Grace University. So that's why I ended up in Beatrice, because everybody went to Iowa Western to go on the river. And I was like, I don't want to follow everybody else. I don't want to do it. Even though I loved that station, kind of. I don't really like alternative music. But then... Erica does.
Love that station.
Yeah. But yeah, I went to Beatrice, and it was like oldies and like cool music. I could play whatever I wanted to, and I had freedom to do anything because it was such a small town. And being a DJ on the air in Beatrice was so much fun. Then I went from that to go to Froggy 98 in Lincoln, and B107.3 I did stuff with too. So yeah, then kind of really realizing like, oh, you have to start off minimum wage to be a radio DJ. This is stupid. Why am I doing this? Yep. But I had 3 classes left, and I was like, fuck it. And I ended up living on my friend's, like, in her dining room, on the floor. I didn't have a bed. And I, like, 3 months, finished those 3 classes, and I got my degrees because I don't quit. And... So I got the degree. I have a degree in mass media communications, applied science. Don't use it. So, but, so yeah, that's my college shit. Yeah, so that's kind of everything with job-wise. I guess let's talk about, like, when we went through our spiritual awakening and what triggered that. If you want to go first, I guess. Okay, I can talk about mine this time. You want me to?
Yeah, you go.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So 10 years ago, I had a best friend who's my best friend, knew absolutely everything about me. my rock of a person. If you've ever heard my little testimonial to how I became what I became, I tell this story all the time. He passed away. It was a very tragic way that he had to pass away. I'm not going to go too into detail because it's not that big of a deal with that, but his death was the force that triggered me into my spiritual awakening. So it was about a week, no, probably 2 weeks before he went into a coma. He made me watch The Secret with him. And I was like, what the fuck is this shit? Like, this is ridiculous. This is all some foofy, weird, dumb stuff, you know? But he ended up giving me a rock, which I now wear it as a necklace all the time. And he was like, put this in your pocket, and every time you put it in your pocket, think of 9 things that you're grateful for. And I remember not doing it, completely ignoring what he was trying to tell me to do or whatever. And then, of course, after he passed away, I did that shit religiously. And because I was like, whoa, what was going on? But anyways, as soon as he passed away, he started showing up in clairvoyant visions for me. I remember one memory of me driving to Valley. I was going over to a friend's house, and he completely took over my vision. So I had to pull over on the side of the road because I couldn't fucking see. And he was showing me like a whole vision of him sitting in the middle of the room with a baby. I knew who the baby was. I knew who the mom was. He was dating this girl at one point, and like making me feel all of the emotions and like everything. Like, he was showing me at that moment, like that was the moment that he fell in love with this little kid. And I asked the girl about it. Like, I had to call her. I was like, why did I just see this? What is this? And she's like, oh my God, that is when my kid had croup, whatever the hell that is. And she's like, yeah, he stayed up with him all night because I had stayed up with him the night before and I was exhausted, so he took the shift, and that was his first time ever caring for a kid, ever doing something like that, and he fell so much in love with that kid, and he wanted me to tell her that. I had no idea what was going on, and it was so terrifying, and I was so freaked out. It was so weird to me. And then just the series of events that started happening after it. Like, my cousin was in town from Washington the week that he died because her grandma died, and she was a Reiki master. She threw out all these crystals on the bed and was like, I already know which one you're going to pick, so pick it up because you need it. It's for grief. And I was like, what is going on? He gave me this rock. What is these rocks? What is happening? You know, like, I remember being a kid, and like anytime I would go to like any vacation or whatever when we were traveling, I would always get the little grab bags of rocks because I loved it the most, but I had no idea what was going on. So he passed away in August 10 years ago, and then in January me and my cousin went to Washington for the first time, and that's when I got Reiki for the first time. I remember walking around. We were in Portland at this time. I remember walking around downtown Portland and just being like, after Reiki, like, how does everything make sense? I understand why my friend died. I understand everything. It was so weird that like all the epiphanies and things that were happening after this, it was just like a light got turned on, and it was like, this is what you need to be doing. This makes sense. This is life-changing, and you can do it, you know? So that's when I started. I ended up getting kicked out of my apartment that same month because his death triggered me into craziness, lost jobs, all kinds of stuff. Got evicted. My roommate really did fuck me over. It was not my fault. But anyways, I moved into Fremont. That's when I had, which is super weird that me and Erica, there's so much Fremont stuff. But I got taught Reiki for the first time ever in Fremont. And it was Reiki 1 and 2. And then when about a year-ish, maybe 2 years later, I learned Reiki 3 and Master. And then I was not able to turn off spirits again. So it took me almost 3 years to stop them and control them. And But this is all like, besides me getting attuned to Reiki, every single thing that I do is self-taught. And it's not conventional. It's not normal. If you are looking for, like, I need to say this real quick because I've had some backlash with this. If you're looking for a Reiki teacher that's going to go through, like, step-by-step shit, this is not me. I'm self-taught, so I'm all over the place with stuff. Erica can definitely attest to this. It's way better to do it just hands-on and just get that experience versus me kind of being like, here's the regimen, you know. But
yeah, like, go home and study chapter 1.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that. So everything has been self-taught. So it has been now a 10-year journey to right now finally being able to say in this moment, I am making a profit just doing this full time. And it's been a wild ride. So that's kind of it. That's my awakening story.
So again, like, mine's like a lot different from yours. Death kind of catapulted you into it, and I was, thank God, into it before the whole thing happened to me. So I don't know. I would say that from a very young age, I was always like super open-minded to everything. So like, even though I was raised in a highly religious family, I always had questions that were never getting answered for me. So I always questioned everything. Like every time somebody would say like, oh, hey, here's this, you should believe in this, I'd be like, yeah, but can it answer this, that, and the other? No, well, then I don't believe. I'm going to go, read about this or read about that. So when I was a teenager, I actually read like, I read about like all different kinds of religions, from the Bible to the Quran to Buddhism to Hinduism. I read it all because I just wanted to find some kind of like thing that linked it all together. I always kind of knew that I was just gonna have this theory for like how it all made sense to me. So I guess the whole spiritual awakening thing's kind of like difficult for me because I feel like I've always been sort of semi-awake to it because I've always been open-minded enough. So I never really felt like I was just like everybody else. However, most of my life I did play along with that though, so I did play along with the normal material life, with everybody else, and would kind of shut off this part of me where I'd be like, oh, okay, well, on a Saturday night, late at night, when, me and my friends are around, we'll have some deep talks, and that's about it, So I would say that it was when I got pregnant with my youngest kiddo, which she's 3 now, so about 3 years ago, is when I started, like, I would say it stemmed from, like, a deep, deep depression, and I think that I had, like, postpartum depression there, so after I had her, it was like really hard for me. I felt really alone in life, and I felt like all of this stuff that I wanted to build my life up to was not going the way that I had planned for it to go, and didn't really see like a different way to live. I guess it was like, here was my plan, and my life wasn't going to that plan. So then, what's the point in life, kind of thing. And I started watching, I think that for me, what really catapulted me into it was just like research, like reading up on things and reading books and watching YouTube videos. Like, internet was huge for me. Like, once I could access YouTube and like go down these rabbit holes, like that just brought on a lot of like epiphanies and thinking about things in new ways and different perspectives and stuff. So anyway, though, the first time that I got Reiki was by Claire. And I can't even like really remember how. No, actually, I'm lying. That you weren't the first person to give me Reiki. The first person to give me Reiki was actually at Next Millennium. Is that the name of the store?
Yeah.
Okay, so they have like this little other building next to the store building where they have like events, right?
I don't know. I've never been to that.
Okay. Well, I remember seeing something on the internet that they were going to be having like a... So it was Angelica and her husband. So it was like basically a thing where like they came back from Peru, and they had these cacao, or whatever, beans, and they were going to be brewing this like tea kind of thing out of it. and drinking that, and then doing like a meditation, and he was playing the piano, so it was like sound healing. And then she was going around and doing Reiki on like a group of people at the same time. So this is what like I had. So that was the first time I had Reiki, and that's what I thought Reiki was like, because she didn't do what Claire did. She just, kind of went around to everybody and would like touch you in different places and in different ways. That
It was
sounds bad,
quiet.
but yeah, but quiet the whole time. The only time she ever talked to me was she like whispered in my ear one time and told me to relax. That's it. So she could feel like the tension in my body, which was because I was so new to all of this at that point, and I was like, what the hell did I went there all by myself, and I was like, what did I sign up for? This is so weird. And like, yeah, so I definitely was not comfortable there.
But those
But
people are
anyway,
amazing, which was another weird
yes,
synchronicity that me and Erica have. That
yeah,
Eugene was a part of Endless Journey, the hospice company that I worked at, and he did sound healing for the hospice patients. Like, they are amazing human beings, and
yes,
she really
yes.
does do good work. And I would love to go to their retreat in Peru and
Oh God,
do
me
all of
too.
that stuff. So, no bad juju to them.
No, not at all. No, I just didn't know. I didn't
Yeah.
know anything about it. Um, so anyway, I guess that's just what I guess. Like, it's just kind of one of those things about perspective again. Like at that point, I thought that's what Reiki was, and then when I was open up to Claire, I realized actually there's like now I know that there's literally like hundreds of ways that people are doing Reiki, and it's all different, and they're all bringing their own little uniqueness to it, So, but anyway, so I met Claire somehow. I don't really know how. I think I maybe just like found you on Facebook, and watched some of your live videos, and then I think I kind of like, yeah, I kind of like cradled my way into it, I guess. Like I think I booked like a tarot session with you first or
I'm
something,
going to
and
look
then
because I'm curious.
yeah, and then I do remember booking a house cleansing session with you where
I
you came to
remember that,
Fremont.
yeah.
But man, it just really kind of took off from there. Like it's crazy how that all happened. So I had like several Reiki sessions with Claire where I was working on, all these things that we talked about.
You had a
And
medium session first.
oh, I had a medium session first.
March.
Interesting, which is crazy because at that point in time, the only dead person in my life was my grandma who died when I was like 7 years old. So
Yeah.
but I do remember that session with you, and you telling me about like there was something she was like big into arts and crafts, and she made me this little porcelain doll angel thing on a chair, and you could spin it and it would like sing. And I remember you saying like, hey, she knows of this, it's packed away in a box somewhere, isn't it? And I'm like, yeah, actually it's like somewhere packed in a box in my garage somewhere. And then like, yeah, that, so just kind of going through all of that. But yeah, I had several Reiki sessions with you, and then my mom passed away, and so I guess it's kind of like for me, it was kind of like different spiritual
Yeah.
awakenings because so there was like all these ones that led up to this one, and then that one awoke me to the fact that life is so short, and that's when I really started going like ham, I guess, with me doing what you're doing, not exactly what you're doing, but you know what I'm saying, like
Yeah.
me realizing that, hey, I'm not happy with my job, or hey, I'm not happy with these things at home, and like what am I actually going to do now to fix it and make this life the way that I knew I was always supposed to be. So awakening is weird. It's almost like you were always that person, you just had to become aware of it,
Hmm.
through different things that happen in your life.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you like have anything I'm forgetting about that. I don't know. Because I
Well,
was going to say,
you
what's
learned
weird is that
Reiki
you're
too.
really around through my whole awakening.
What'd you say?
I said, what's weird about this too is that like you were really around for
Hmm.
my whole awakening.
Yeah. And I am that for a lot of people, which is weird, but that's kind of what I like. I wanted to just say like to do, but I am able to help it because, like I said, I'm self-taught. So, with that being said, I can help people like move to the next level and help and whatever. But yeah, you ended up learning Reiki just recently too. Like, um,
Actually, can you believe it's already almost been a year? It was March.
oh wow. So you started March 2018 is when you very first saw me, and then March 2019 is when you got Reiki the first time. What is this March gonna bring us?
Well, it was March of 2019 that I like learned Reiki.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so cool. Um, so yeah, that's our awakening. Stories. Do you have any questions about me with mine? I guess.
Um, Not that I can think of really right off the top of my head.
Okay. The only thing that kind of popped into my head when you were talking is that it really made me realize that I went from my parents, the strictness with my parents, to going to college with the strictness with the Bible college, and then from there, the strictness that addiction has on you right after that, to then fully, that's when I went through my crazy drugs, crazy, all of that, like insaneness. So I didn't start like learning and really becoming me until my mid-ish 20s. So, which is crazy to think about. I guess I just like put that together today with
Which I
that.
would say is like the kind of the same deal for me too. Yeah, like 3 years ago, and I'm 28. So yeah,
Yeah.
25.
Yeah. Um, and then I guess like I wrote down that we were going to talk about like what we each do. So, as far as business wise in the metaphysical community, business wise for me, the main thing that I do is Reiki. So, those of you that are watching this have no idea what Reiki is, do some research. It's amazing, but it's energy healing. It's a way to kind of like clean you out completely energetically. I can tap into every single chakra. I'm able to like pull out things in your chakra, um, like I can pull out of your throat chakra to be like, oh my gosh, I can tell that you have a block in here with your mom because you don't talk to her at all. Why is there beef between you two? And then I'm able to like see that, and then I can be like, okay, this is fine that you have this block, but we need to handle it in a different way because it's causing resistance for you receiving something usually, you know? So there's so much in depth that is tiny little spot of compared to all of the 7 chakras. I can pull out all kinds of stuff. So Reiki, I do medium stuff. I talk to dead people. I talk to guides. I talk to animals. I talk to fucking elves, angels, Odin. Like, it's gotten weird lately. Like, like I could talk to anything. And then I do tarot. And I mix 3 decks together when I do tarot. It's not normal, traditional, here's my spread. I all intuitively pick. I do focus on astrology a lot. I do astrology in every single thing that I do. And then house cleanses. I cleanse the whole house with sage, and then I give Reiki to the whole entire house to give protection. And then I communicate with any spirits that are in there. And I can help them leave, or just tell you that they're not a problem and it's not a big deal or whatever. We hold moon ceremonies here at the studio. Those are free. Full moon, new moon. We do stuff for equinoxes. I do lots of rituals. What am I missing? I think that's it. I think that's all that I do. I feel like I'm missing something though that I do.
You teach Reiki.
Oh, okay, yeah. I teach Reiki. That's what master is. Yeah. So Reiki, tarot, astrology. I use crystals the whole time. Bird chart. Yeah, that's it. So that's my business. I do lots of different things. I run specials all the time. I'm constantly doing something new, which is cool to be having your own business, because when you do get bored, you just tweak it, change it, whatever, you know? So I've been doing this full time now for, I guess it's been over 3 years. That's weird. Yep. So that's me. So what do you do metaphysical wise?
Okay, so I also know Reiki. I'm a Reiki master, and In Reiki, so that's kind of like a weird difference between me and you too. I don't want to call myself a medium because I don't, I guess, put a lot of emphasis in that. However, when I'm doing Reiki, I have been known to do that. Or also guides or like maybe past life stuffs or like, whatever the hell's going on. I've been able to do that kind of stuff too. Um, uh, Astrology is the big one for me, obviously. If you follow my page, I've like totally crackheaded out about astrology for like a couple years now, and I feel like I'm pretty damn knowledgeable about astrology.
Way more than me.
And in astrology too, I guess like there's to talk about that a little bit. It's more than just like people think, oh, I can just go type my information in on astro.com and it will, it'll do the same thing. But I can look at your birth chart in a way that a computer can't, and I can like kind of pick out how different things interact with each other and what kind of brings to the forefront of your life. I can tell you about past life, and I can tell you about what your purpose is in this life. I can tell you about kind of like things you've went through in your life and how it shapes your perception. And then I can also do synastry readings where I can tell you how your relationship works best with this other relationship, or whether, and I hate that whole like, are you compatible or not? Because you can really be compatible with anybody if you learn how to work with them,
Yeah.
So I can kind of give you a different perspective on that. And then as well as transit reading, where I can tell you like, this is what's going on in your life right now. This is what you need to be focusing on right now. And like even, a little bit up to the future. And then also death charts too is something that I've kind of gotten into after my mom passed away, because that blew my mind. Like I just randomly had this idea to look at her birth chart compared to the current transit the moment that she passed away. So that's what they call a death chart. So it's basically like, if the snapshot of the sky the moment you were born is important, then what about the snapshot of the sky the moment that you died? And so I did that, and like the shit I saw was just mind blowing. So I haven't done that yet for anybody else, but well, okay, yeah, you're right. I have done that for you. Yeah. Yeah. So, but I haven't done that business wise, I guess, for anybody else, but it is something that I can do. Mm-hmm. Let's see here. And then, I guess presently I'm working really hard on like a evolutionary development type of role, like helping people evolve to the next level of their awakening, I guess is the best way to put it, or the next level of what they're trying to work on in their life, which I guess was kind of like a life coach, but I don't like to claim titles, so I don't want to call myself anything. So there you go.
Yeah. So yeah, we kind of talked about where we're at now and vision for the future.
And for this podcast, I guess, because it's kind of funny. We've been talking all this time about ourselves, but I guess
talked
maybe
about
people would wonder what the hell is this though, So.
Yeah, you want to take that, like what you feel like the vision for the podcast is? Because
so let's kind of talk about like how we came about the idea. So, okay, so me and Claire were doing lives together where I was doing the astrology and she was doing the tarot. So if you've seen her live videos, you know what that all is about. If you don't, go check it out. But I guess in the midst of doing that, we really liked how we're able to like conversate with each other, or I guess basically like the balance between both of our energies, which is also something that makes us different in Reiki. Like Claire is she's very, with her Aries moon and everything, she's very like, if you want to be motivated or you want to make a big decision and you're wavering, she would be the person for you, because she will just like Kool-Aid man her way into that whole situation and like give you a bunch of courage and like, help you through that. I'm more of like a, I don't know, like let's say these two people are debating about something. I'll be like, well, here's this little middle story. Like, here's how you're right and you're right. And so I guess both of our
bring balance.
Like the way that we perceive things kind of like really balance each other out and make for a lot of good open-minded discussion on various things, which we kind of learned we were already doing by going live. So we decided, okay, how could we go further with this and have like an actual podcast or show or whatever. And so we kind of started brainstorming on that. So do you want to talk about how we came up with like the name and everything?
No, you do it much better than me.
Oh, okay. So we're both Aquariuses, obviously. And so that's where the whole Sacred Rebels, I guess, came about because we're talking about spiritual things. So even though we're going to talk about various different subjects and topics, it's all going to be kind of under the same umbrella of the spiritual, metaphysical type stuff. And so that's where the sacred comes in, and then the rebels, obviously, because we are non-conformist as fuck. So like, if you want somebody to try to like brainwash you into something, or if you want somebody that's going to sugarcoat things, or if you want someone that's going to be delusional, I guess, about what this really is, then we are not the podcast for you. So we are going to rebel against all that bullshit and bring you the real, raw truth of the matter. And so that's where the rebels comes in, and that's where we're shoving the message, you know, right up Uranus. because if you don't know this, also Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius too. So that's where that comes in.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, so moving forward, podcast-wise, we're going to be kind of tackling any kind of thing from, I mean, talking about fairies and elves. Let's talk about astrology. Let's talk about what Reiki, like some weird clients that we've had. Let's talk about, like, we're going to have topics all over the board, and it is not going to be just like, here's your astrology message for the day, here's your tarot reading for the day. Like, we're going to be bringing in anything that you guys want to. I'm like glitching. Is it glitching for you?
No.
Okay, good. But yeah, we're going to be, and I want it to be very, like, I hate to say this word, but fan-based. And I want you guys to have more of a, like, say here, to be like, I've always wondered about this, but I can't find good information about it. We're going to, like, find a topic, research the shit out of it for a whole week, and then talk the shit about it, all about it on that weekend or whatever. Like, that's our plan, is that we're going to do some work and present it to you, kind of a thing. Yeah.
And then, you know, while we're researching it on our own, we're not doing it together. So
yeah,
that's also kind of the thing that's going to make us different, is Claire's going to have her own perspective on the topic, and I'm going to have my own perspective on the topic, and then we're going to kind of like banter about it. Yeah, we're going to fight.
And fight. Yeah. But the cool thing about the podcast is that we're both women. We're both Aquariuses. We do have very, like, the reason why we wanted to start off with this, like, let's introduce, why can't I fucking say that word today? But anyways, the introduction, whatever, with us is because we want you to know where we're coming from. We want you to understand this is the backgrounds that I have, this is the background that she has, and when we come out, you guys will fully know, oh, this is because she has this going on in her life, or oh, blah, 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 whatever, you know. So you guys will fully get that raw understanding of, this is who I am, open book, bring it on.
Well, and because too, like, a lot of the times when you like, if you want to know about astrology, so you go watch an astrologist, they're coming at you from that master level, I guess, and that's not who they really are in real life, you know. So I think it's important to, like, the reason why we talked about all this is so you guys know, hey, we're just regular people with fucked up past too, you know. We're not any more wise in mastery of life than the next person. Yeah. So I mean, if you're going to take advice from someone, it should be someone that's been through what you've been through, you know, someone you can relate to, someone that's reachable.
Yeah. And that's the thing that, like, if we do talk about astrology, let's say we're talking about, like, a Chiron aspect or something that's happening, which is triggers and stuff that could happen, we're going to talk about our real lives. We're going to talk about stuff like that, where most astrologers are like, this is what Chiron does, this is blah, blah, and it's not real. It's not tangible stories that can help you understand what is going on.
Yes.
So that's the other thing. Like, if we decide to talk about, like, I don't know why elves keep coming up in my fucking head, but we're going to talk about elves apparently at some point. But like, if we decide to talk about elves, I'm going to tell you all of the stories that I know about everything with elves from us being at Mystic Fest this last time, sitting next to our elf. Like, but like, whatever it is, to understand just our basic knowledge and then researching and being like, oh my God, look what I found. I related to this because of this thing in my life and blah, blah, blah. Like, it's going to be real. Like, that's what you're getting.
That's the kind of the cool thing too, is that we're going to be growing along with you too, because we're going to come across things that we don't know. And like we talked about at the beginning of this, when it comes to having jobs you get bored with, we always want to be learning, always. So like anything new that we learn is going to make us like grow.
I know. I've been so excited to start this because I have like a list of things on my own. Like, I'm so excited to dive into the nodes and astrology and learn all about that. And I'm so excited to like dive into random deities and learn about them. Like, oh my God, I've been super excited to like my brain. But yeah. And yeah, so we're going to be non-biased. We're not going to bring judgment. We're going to be able to like fully, like, we're not going to a lot of the times pick sides. I mean, granted, I'm sure that there's going to be times that we do pick sides where like I firmly whatever, but you can fucking do whatever the hell you want to. I don't give a shit, you know? That's the main message, is that we're not going to come out here fear-mongering thinking you have to be this way and you must do this. And no. Do whatever the hell you want to. What makes you happy? You do you. We're just going to sit here and hang out with you for a little bit.
Like, I think too, like us both being Aquariuses, we both got turned off at some point to the whole religion, you know, like I'm talking like, you know, basic Christianity religion, because it was too structured and there was too many rules and they weren't answering our questions and stuff like that. So I will never in my entire life get to that point with anything. And it's crazy to me how people leave that and then they come into the spiritual community and end up doing the same fucking thing. So we're not ever going to be like that.
Yep. Yeah. So that's kind of it. I mean, do you have any other things to talk about or last stuff to kind of mention? I know that the first few podcasts were going to be really weird. I don't know how to edit shit, so we're just going to rawly put this out on YouTube, and that's why I'm doing this, so I can start to learn how to edit, learn how to, like, hopefully one day we have an introduction thing. Fuck that word. And, like, all...
Why do you keep wanting to say
I don't know! But, like, and then, like, an outro and all of, like, hopefully I can be like, oh, good idea, bing, and something pops up. Like, I have all of these things, but I don't know how to do them. And that's why we wanted to do this podcast, to force ourselves, or myself at least, to start to learn this. So
I can't wait until we're at a point where we have, like, an actual podcast room and it's all soundproof.
Yes,
We got little mics. We got a dude over there in the corner doing all the video editing, popping up little screens in the corner.
yeah.
Watch.
Yeah, this is our first one. We're going to be able to look back at that and be like, oh, look at us.
In my car.
Yeah. But yeah, so thank you all that have watched this whole time. I don't even know how long we've been going. an hour and 16 minutes. Okay. So, yeah, thank you everybody that has watched this, and I appreciate you all. Make sure that you're checking out both of our separate stuff. Mine is Clairvoyant Psychic Medium. You can find me on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, everything. So that's mine. You talk about yours.
So far, I have a Facebook page, Erica Lane. I don't know. I need to get better about it. I need to get better about all the other stuff. But oh well. At this point, I'm just like super happy with the way that everything is right now. There was something else I was gonna say, and now I'm forgetting too.
You're gonna have to get used to that. We're both Aquariuses. Things fall out of our brains a lot. She's a double Aquarius, by the way, so it's worse.
Oh yeah, you should say that real quick. So tell what your three main are.
I feel like I did, didn't I? Okay, well, I'm an Aquarius Sun, Aries Moon, Taurus Rising.
And I am an Aquarius Sun, Aquarius Moon, and a Libra Rising. So if you know anything about astrology, then you can kind of get a good glimpse of like what we're both like.
Yeah. Yeah. But all right. I'm gonna end this. Thank you all. Yay. Have fun.
Make sure that you are sharing this video and subscribing to our
liking,
channel.
Subscribing, bell, whatever, all of that.
Bell so you can turn on to get notified when we post another video. We're hoping to do this once a week, and sharing will help get the message out there and help grow our channel, and also be leaving us topics. We also have an email address now too, so the email address is sacredrebels333@gmail.com. You can email us if you have any topic requests, and I don't know if you want to talk to us about anything, and
Yep.
I think that's it.
All right. Thank you, everybody.